Welcome to the Huntington Way Show, where we help parents navigate the educational maze. I'm your host, Yvonne Strachan, author and founder of InspirationalHomeschooling.com. Today's guest is Helen Scott. She is a homeschool mom of 6. She and her husband have founded the organization Wonder, and they are expanding their service to homeschool families through other avenues. Today's topic is one family's vision to support the homeschool community and um, her role and perspective in homeschooling their children. You're listening on Power Talk 1040 AM, 98.5 FM, and 95.7 FM. Please like and subscribe to Power Talk 1040 on YouTube. First, I am going to talk with Helen, and we're just going to talk about what she does to serve the homeschool community. Welcome to the show, Helen.
Thank you, Yvonne. I appreciate being here. I'm excited to have this conversation, and I appreciate your invitation.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you here. So I'm curious, what led you and your husband to homeschool?
Oh boy. um, so for a long time, actually, I couldn't remember why we started homeschooling, and recently, we were talking, and we realized that it came from I was pregnant with my first daughter, and my husband had just met his mentor, and they homeschooled. And then a little bit of time after that, we went to a conference and we found a whole bunch of families that homeschooled. And I remember going to a workshop. There was a family there that did a particular workshop, and it was about family raising our children, and they homeschooled. And we came from the idea of having twins that you can't control and having 2 kids, a boy and a girl that you can't control, to really allowing the Lord to lead us in our family, and that included the homeschool, philosophy or method or approach to living. And so um, that's essentially why we started homeschooling, and it just happened naturally. It wasn't like you know, I'm starting or it wasn't, I don't even remember it being a conversation. It just kind of happened naturally. It was very interesting because both of us went to public school in Colorado. We were in high school together. We weren't middle school together. So we've known each other for a long time. And I don't think we knew, we didn't even think about it. And then I think the pieces just kind of fell in place to homeschool before I even had the baby. So
Oh,
it
wow.
was really interesting.
That is really interesting. And homeschooling really is a lifestyle,
It
isn't
is.
it? Yeah,
Absolutely. That's how we think of homeschooling is it's the academics, but it's the practical life. It's the character. It's raising up our children in the ways of the Lord. It's teaching them how to cook and teaching them how to, be hospitable. All of those things. Those are all how we see home education.
right. Homeschooling is homeschooling the whole child and being together as a family.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So, I imagine that it's just been such a blessing to your family, and this is probably what has led you to maybe, serve the other homeschool families. Can you tell me a little bit about what guided your passion to start the organization Wonder?
Yes. So we had the idea of Wonder probably a decade before we started. We didn't call it Wonder, but it was essentially an idea to bring the community together, focusing on family and music and arts and just fellowship and food and all of the different things. And you know, we realized that there weren't a lot of creative believers, I guess, that were easily found. And so we also had this idea of wanting to develop or train the next generation in creative arts and music and anything that we would want to partake in ourselves, that we kind of this idea of preparing for the next generation, helping them be equipped. And then our children were a part of an orchestra, and we found that our younger ones were just, hanging out waiting for the big sisters to finish up. And so all of that kind of contributed to the idea of having something that was for the whole homeschool family and incorporating music and arts, training up the next generation, and not only wanting that for our children, but for other families as well. And so I think that all was a culmination to where we are now. When we started essentially with about 30, less than 30 students, because it was during 2020 and there were a lot of closures going on, and we decided, oh, this is the year to start.
Yeah.
And so we realized that even in hardship, we need music, we need arts, we need the wonder of God to be just inspired in our children. And so we decided, okay, we're going to start, and it has been a blessing. It's been a blessing from the beginning, starting with about 30 kids or less than 30 kids, and then jumping up to almost 100 or a little bit more than 100, and now we're at over 140-ish students this year. And at this point, we're kind of with our space, we really can't go any further until we get our own space. Um, but it's just been such a blessing, and we know that the Lord is going to open up more opportunities. The vision that we had before isn't quite finished, but we're just taking it step by step and trying to get there and support each other and support the homeschool community. And we're supported all the time. Every time we go to Wonder, I'm like, wow, I'm so thankful for this community. That we're encouraged, even though we're doing a service, we find ourselves just continually being filled up as we go through this process.
Oh, yeah. And that's one thing that I've noticed with every guest I've had so far. It's like we are serving our kids and we're so blessed by homeschooling. And then we all want to reach out and just help other people. And through that service, you're blessed, as you're saying. And I felt that same way. So, can you just talk about a little bit of the ways that you've been blessed by the community as you've been serving them?
Wow. Well, I feel like as so we've been homeschooling from the very beginning.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes I think, at least for homeschool moms, sometimes I feel like you can feel like you got it, you've already done it.
Hmm.
But starting Wonder, every time I talk to a parent, another mom, one, I'm re-inspired, like, oh, I think the biggest thing is that I'm learning. Even though I've been doing this for a while, we have a 17-year-old, so we're going to have our first senior this year. And I still feel like I can learn from other moms, other parents. And I get that when you're just in community. You get to learn about, even sometimes you forget about what it was like with the little ones. So we have 6 children,
Yeah.
and we get an opportunity to relearn it every single time. And so I think, one, we're trying to be better at this process, and that community, doing it with other people, you just kind of pull, push and pull from each other.
Yeah.
And so even though, again, we're doing a service, I feel like I continually learn and learn better ways to be a mom, better ways to educate my children, finding out more opportunities and solutions and resources. All of that comes from just being able to engage with more homeschool families.
Oh, that's
So,
wonderful. Yeah. So you're talking about you're discovering more resources. So it sounds like you're pulling a lot of those resources together. Can you tell me a little bit about how you've increased your service to the homeschool community and your vision for the future?
sure. So we have Wonder as a local organization. We meet. Essentially, it's a music, arts, and enrichment program for homeschool families, and we meet on Tuesdays. It's a full day of band, orchestra, choir, theater, dance. We do infants to high school senior classes. We have like a little Montessori style class for the 4 to 7-year olds, and it's wonderful because all of the families can come together. We're actually starting a Wonder Honor Society this upcoming year, and essentially what that is. Um, so we're entrepreneurs. We have a desire to train up the next generation in leadership and business and entrepreneurship. And so the Honor Society is for homeschoolers, whereas usually you have to be a part of a public school program. We're major advocates for essentially wanting to keep state funding out of what we do, because we know what the state funds it runs, and we want to have that ability to focus on what we want to without someone else swaying where our head goes. And so we have that going on. We're really excited about it because it's going to allow for scholarships. It's going to be a national program, so we have our local element, then we have our national element. Um, and so we're really excited about that. It's really fresh. We just launched it, so we're really excited. And then we on the other side of that, we have another organization called Wonder also. I don't It's amazing that we got Wonder as as its own name, but it's going to be a community resource marketplace. And so essentially, homeschoolers, we know a lot of homeschoolers that make their own curriculum, they make their own lessons, they make their own worksheets, calendars, anything like that that teach, that do mentoring for parents and children. So it's a resource for parents to buy and sell products. There's already things like that outside of what we're talking about, but it all brings it together with a focus of homeschooling. So if you're a parent that creates those things, you can sell on the marketplace. And if you don't, and you don't like, um, if you don't make those things and you want to buy and support another homeschool family, then you can do that. And it will also have an opportunity to sell if your children make embroidery pieces or weaving or pottery or cards. All of those things could be sold on our marketplace.
Oh,
So we're really excited. And every one of the things that we always want to do is, put back into the homeschool community. So all of the transactions that are made through the site will go to supporting local homeschool programs, scholarships. We are absolute advocates for the homeschool community. That's why we're doing what we're doing. And we want to make sure it's kind of just in every aspect being able um, to incorporate that, not only in the services, but also in our giving.
oh, that sounds wonderful. Well, Helen, thank you for sharing your vision for serving the homeschool community. When we come back, we will talk more with Helen about how everything is going with her kids. Welcome back to the Huntington Way Show. You are listening on Power Talk 1040 AM, 98.5 FM, and 95.7 FM. Please like and subscribe to Power Talk 1040 on YouTube. I'm your host, Yvonne Strachan, and I'm speaking here with Helen Scott, and we're talking about her serving the homeschool community and also, her venture in homeschooling her kids. So, welcome back.
Thank you.
So, what is your role as homeschool mom?
Well, I'm mom
Right.
essentially. We, I guess in our family, I do the majority of the guiding through our home education.
Okay.
Um, so I usually am the one that does lessons for math and all of that, those academic elements. But the way we look at homeschooling is really from the very beginning, I really wanted my children to one, have a love of learning and to be independent in their learning. And so as soon as they start reading, I want them to be able to take on that independence. And even before that, I think there's uh, elements of even with my younger children, I want them to help and do things that they're capable of. And so we do that from the very beginning. As soon as they're able to put their dishes away, those are things that we do. So I think it's really just mom. And I help them with all aspects of just raising a child. And I really believe that that's what my duty is, what my responsibility is just raising them. And that incorporates the homeschool and then the education and the parent,
Uh-huh.
child relationship. It's interesting because home education is not necessarily academics. And I think that's the challenge. It's that it's not just academics. It's about raising our children. And so
Right.
for us, there's not this distinction, this hard line between school and home. So that's why I'm just mom.
Yeah.
I'm mama.
Yeah. And that is just the best way to describe it,
Yeah.
right? I feel the same way. Um, so, when we're homeschooling, we're working with our kids on a daily basis, helping them get along, um, and and then just working on that educational piece too. So
Hmm.
everything joins together and prepares them and equips them for what God created them to be.
Amen.
Yes. So, what does your typical family's homeschool day look like?
Well, it has changed a lot over the years. So again, I have six children, and so we have children that are in middle school or elementary, middle school, high school, and we have a little one that's a year and a half. And so I think our day is essentially we have a somewhat of a framework that we work through. So we don't like spending the whole day doing math or whatnot, but um, we kind of just live, and there's a lot of reading that happens in our home. Our older ones are really independent. They have some goals that they want to accomplish, so they spend a lot of time doing that. I do something called high fives, and it was something I implemented a long time ago. I had studied a little bit about what successful people do. And then I created this. So my children start off their day with prayer and they, get ready. So there's a couple of the fives are about getting ready. They read their Bibles, they read a book, they make sure they move, which is really important for kids that are older because they don't necessarily want to do that automatically. The little ones, you don't have to put a check mark to move. They will move on their own. But
Right.
the older ones, making sure they stay healthy and they're moving. And then they do some focused practice or focused activities. So for our children, they do music all the time. So they make sure they dedicate some time to music. Um, and then they do strategy, which is what am I doing this week? And they kind of lay that out. So I tried to create that from the beginning. So my younger ones don't do all of it. I work with them with some of it, but my older ones are at that point where they're very independent. And they go through that process on their own. And then the younger ones do the parts that they're able to on their own. But it's a lot of family together, cooking together, or, my kids have certain days that they cook and they contribute to the household. Uh, and we try to do as much together as a family. I do not like separation, having to do lessons, with every subject. That's really hard. That's something I didn't want to do. So,
Mhm.
so we try to do as much as we can as a family together.
Yeah. Having a whole family together, homeschooling, educating, living. I mean, what a precious thing, you
It
know?
is.
Yeah, we are so blessed to be able to do that with our children. What would you say would be the toughest job as a homeschool mom?
Well, I think balance, having several children, wanting to make sure that all of their needs are met, recognizing that you have different struggles, and just, I think it's really just parenting issues.
Yeah.
Wanting to be sensitive to who they are, respecting them as God's children. That was one of the things I learned at that first conference I mentioned. I remember one of the messages she said is, talk to your children like they're children of God. And wow, I mean, such a simple concept, but how it can be challenging when we're frustrated and needing to remember that. So I think dealing with conflict, learning how to deal with some of the challenges that come with just growing up, raising different children, and then that balance of making sure that they're getting what they need and we have time to do other things and making sure that they have time to do what they want to do. So it's just parenting.
Right. Yeah, and having six children
Six
with a
children.
long span,
Yep.
a wide range of ages, and each individual personality, I'm sure just all that put together is in challenge enough itself.
Yes.
So, yeah. What's your best advice for other homeschool moms out there?
Well, I think, we were just talking about challenges. I feel like when we get our children in the process, like in the conversation, that they feel like from the beginning that they have a responsibility to serve and be served. We want our children to feel like they're a part of the family and not just that I'm serving them, but they are serving each other. And starting from the beginning of having that heart to serve each other, really appreciating family, obviously biblical support and teaching and conversations, open conversations. I mean, there's a lot, but I think just relationship. It essentially goes down to relationship, having a relationship with our children, and not necessarily focusing on the curriculum and making sure that they're, on top of it or at the right level. And this kind of comparison of what we're trying to accomplish. I think our goal is to raise up godly children. At least that's for our household. That's the goal. And we want them to be great contributors, intentional contributors to society. So looking at your goal, what you want, and just going and reevaluating that when you feel like you're kind of off. Um, but definitely getting the children involved in the entire experience of home educating is important because they'll eventually take on responsibility. They'll help with children, the younger ones, if you have more than one child. um, they'll just see the value in what we're doing when you incorporate them in a way that makes them feel like they have a say. So I
Right.
think that's a lot of different things. I think I
No, I
think I
think
said
it's a
more
good.
than one, but
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thing. I mean, the children need to feel valued and they need to know that they're contributing and also being served is so important. So, bringing all that together in the homeschooling environment and raising children is all inclusive and in homeschooling. And it is.
Exactly.
It's just such a blessing. So that's great
Thank
advice.
you. Yeah, that
Yeah.
relationship part is the biggest thing. Our children are children for like 18 years and then they're adults. And
Yeah.
we want to have good, wonderful relationships with our adult children for the rest of their lives. And so that's one of the things I really focus on thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I echo that same prayer and thought
Yeah.
for sure. What is one thing that you would like all homeschool moms to know?
Oh
Just
boy. I mean,
one.
I think that's an extension of what I said, but let me think of one. You were made to do this. The
Yes.
Lord made you to be able to raise your children. So everything you need is in you, and anything that you don't know, there are so many resources out there now.
Yeah.
So just know that you were made to do this.
Perfect. This is wonderful. Well, share where listeners can discover more about Wonder and your other resources.
Yes. Okay. So for local programs, you can find us at letswonder.org. And for our marketplace that's coming up, you can find us at letswonder.com. And for homeschool events, you can find us at homeschooldays.com.
That's wonderful. Just thank you, Helen, for sharing your perspective on homeschooling and serving other homeschool families. This is Yvonne Strachan, today's host on the Huntington Way Show, where we support you in educating your kids. Thank you for joining us.